Good morning. Go ahead and turn your Bibles to Nehemiah chapter 3. We're going to jump in Nehemiah chapter 3 here in a second. Just want to say it is good to see you. It is good to be with you. And I am so encouraged by your presence. We are excited to continue in our series through the book of Nehemiah. We started this last week. And actually, one thing that we saw here, the whole title of this series, by the way, is Rebuilding from Rubble. You understand that the situation in the city of Jerusalem was really, really bad. So they had the temple. The temple was set up, and that was great. But there was no protection for the temple because the walls around the city of Jerusalem had been demolished. And they were not good for anything. So any foreign invading army could come in and just take over. There'd be no problem for them. So what happened is Nehemiah, who, by the way, was cupbearer for King Artaxerxes in Persia, he gets word from his brother from Jerusalem that things are really bad. Nehemiah is the kind of person who cares enough about God's people, about God's work, that even though he was in a comfortable position long way away, he said, we need to do something about this. So he spends 4 months in prayer to God, coming up with some kind of way that he could help out there in the city of Jerusalem to rebuild the walls. Today's Father's Day, and a lot of you know that, and I want to say thank you to all there's a lot of godly fathers in this room right now, and so we need godly fathers, we need godly leadership in homes, and even though this isn't like what you would consider a Father's Day sermon, I want us to think about the ways that Nehemiah, as a leader, shows the qualities that good godly fathers should have. That he was focused on the right things. He knew how to lead the people. We need good godly leaders in the home. And I want us to think about that a little bit as we go through this. You know, Nehemiah, he had this picture of what the people in Jerusalem needed. And he knew how to best serve the Lord. He gets there, he investigates, and he is really good at figuring out, this is what we need, and here's how I get everybody on board. I think, fathers, we need that in our homes as well. We need to know how to lead our families for the Lord and to be focused on the right things, first of all. But how do we get our children and our families, how do we get them on board with serving the Lord? And I think by looking at Nehemiah and seeing how he encourages the people, see how he is a good role model of leadership, that's going to help a lot. Now, we said last week that Nehemiah was a man of prayer. And we saw that 4 months in prayer, that's a long time. And even when he was in front of King Artaxerxes in chapter 2, there was this time where he knew he was about to request something from the king, and it says that he prayed, just right there, in the middle of that conversation. He was very thoughtful about the things of God. Now, today, we are going to be looking at chapter 3. So, the main part of chapter 3, I call this the work in front of us. If you look through chapter 3, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, chapter 3 of Nehemiah is my favorite chapter in Nehemiah. Hands down, not even close, my favorite. Now, if you look at Nehemiah 3 and you start reading through that a little bit, can you see why it's my favorite? Like, you might be looking at that and be like, there's no way that is actually your favorite. Like, how many names in Nehemiah 3 do I actually know how to pronounce? Not many of them. I'll tell you, not a whole lot. And so, like, basically, we're not going to read every verse in this because I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know how you say it. I really don't. It's kind of funny. This morning, Gary asked me, he was like, are you doing Nehemiah 4 tonight? Like, I have Bible reading, and so I was looking through that, and man, I don't know about any of these. Thankfully, I'm not, so he's off the hook there. I don't know, Dylan should make him read something real hard. But Nehemiah 3, I want to look at this because this is actually super encouraging. Nehemiah, as a leader, as he went to Jerusalem, he wanted to get these walls rebuilt. You know, one way that he could have done that is he could have got there and he'd just been like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to get to work. And he could have started like laying the stones and getting the wood and all that and start putting it together. But how long do you think it would take one guy to rebuild the entire wall around Jerusalem? I I don't know. Yeah, me too. I have no clue. That would take a long time. So he knew that he needed to get these people on board. It was like if you had a factory, just imagine like a factory where you have just one supervisor who's like running all the machines. He's doing every single part of the job. And then the other 50 people that work there, they just come in 3 times a week to hear that guy lecture about some part of production. Like, does that sound like how some churches work? That we expect that, okay, as long as this guy's working, that we're good. No, Nehemiah saw that there's so much work to do. It can't just be Nehemiah who's doing the work. He has to get people on board. And so remember in chapter 2 that he told them about this in verse 17, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem so that we will no longer be a reproach. And at the end of verse 18, they said, let us arise and build. So they put their hands to the good work. Things work so much better when everybody is doing their part where they can. And they see what needs to happen, and they follow through, and they do it. So we're going to look through some of this. There's a lot of lessons I think we can see here. But in Nehemiah chapter 3, we'll start with the first 5 verses. And I will read these. Probably won't get all these names right, but it's okay. And we're going to see we're going to start at the northeastern part of this wall. And we're going to see who is responsible for rebuilding which parts of the wall. There's some gates that are put up as well. All of these are important things. So let's jump in and read these 5 verses together. Nehemiah 3, verse 1. Then Eliashib, the high priest, arose with his brothers, the priests, and built the sheep gate. They consecrated it and hung its doors. They consecrated the wall to the Tower of the 100 and the Tower of Hananel. Next to him, the men of Jericho built. And next to them, Zachar, the son of Imri, built. Now the sons of Hassanah built the fish gate. They laid its beams and hung its doors with its bolts and bars. Next to them, Meremoth, the son of Uriah, the son of Hakkoz, made repairs. And next to him, Meshullam, the son of Berechiah, the son of Meshazabel, made repairs. Next to him, Zadok, the son of Baanah, also made repairs. Moreover, next to him, the Tekoites made repairs, but their nobles did not support the work of their masters. Can't you see why I like this so much? It's so exciting. But we start with the sheep gate. And the first thing that we see is the sheep gate. And the sheep gate, you might think, why do we need a sheep gate there in Jerusalem? What sorts of things in the city involve sheep? And you notice who worked on it? The high priest. Well, do you know what was used in sacrifices to the Lord a lot of times? The sheep. So it's pretty important to have this area where the sheep are brought in so that the high priest could do their offering. And maybe we read this to start off just because we're getting in this mindset that God comes first. And so we're going to rebuild this place where the sheep are brought in so we can offer these sacrifices. But again, it's the high priest that does this. So when you think about this, does that surprise you? That the high priest himself is out there working on this wall. You might think of the high priest, he's got a really important job. He is the high priest. Like he's the one, he's offering prayers to God. He's the one that's offering sacrifices. Wouldn't you say, well, he's too busy doing that important work to get his hands dirty in this? Well, high priest was involved. High priest got out there and he did that part because that's what needed to be done. The wall needed rebuilt, and the high priest, he wasn't too good to get involved in that work. And so he was just part of it. He was definitely doing that. Also mentions some people from Jericho, some other cities that were coming in to help as well. But in verse 5, there's something that really stands out to me. We're introduced to the Tekoites. And all we know about them, it's probably the men of Tekoa. It's a city. I don't know anything else about them. But the one thing that this verse tells us is that their nobles didn't support the work. So it seems like what's happening is the nobles, I don't know what reason they had for not supporting the work. Maybe it was one of those, I'm too good for this. I don't want to get my hands dirty. I'm not built for construction work or whatever. Regardless, they weren't doing the work. But as I put here, something to think about. These men of Tekoa, they were able to do something even though their leaders weren't helping out at all. Like they weren't even involved in the work. They didn't support it at all. Sometimes we say, well, I can't be involved in something because, my leaders don't even do that. So why should I do that? Why should I be involved in a work that I don't even see my leaders do? Well, this example shows us it doesn't matter. Even if your leaders don't support it at all, if you want to get involved in the work, you can get involved in the work. And that happens in the church. That happens in so many different areas in life. But I think sometimes as a church, just in general, worldwide, we see that. And it's like, if I don't see someone in a role of leadership getting involved, then I don't know what to do. I'm just not going to get involved because that's probably not what I need to do. No, even if the leaders aren't involved, you can get to work. And there's some stuff you can do. So the Tekoites are really noteworthy here. They're actually going to be important later on in this chapter as well. These guys, they do some pretty interesting things. So we have that. We have about 8 groups who were responsible for working on the north wall. The next section, we're going to start going down the west wall. So let's look at verses 6 through 13. Joda, the son of Paseah, and Meshullam, the son of Besodai. See, I don't know how to pronounce these. Just let's go through it. Repaired the old gate. I know how to say that. They laid its beams and hung its doors with its bolts and its bars. Next to them, Melatiah the Gibeonite and Jadon the Meronothite, the men of Gibeon and the Mizpah, also made repairs for the official seat of the governor of the province beyond the river. Next to him, Uzziel, the son of Harhiah of the goldsmiths, made repairs. Next to him, Hananiah, one of the perfumers, made repairs. And they restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Next to them, Rephai, the son of Hur, the official of half the district of Jerusalem, made repairs. Next to them, Jediah, the son of Harumaph, made repairs opposite his house. And next to him, Hattush, the son of Hashbeni, made repairs. Malchijah, the son of Haram, and Hashub, the son of Pahath-Moab, repaired the section and the tower of the furnaces. Next to him, Shallum, the son of Halohesh, the official of half the district of Jerusalem, made repairs, he and his daughters. Hanan and his inhabitants of Zanoah repaired the valley gate. They built it and hung its doors with its bolts and bars and 1,000 cubits of the wall to the refuse gate. There's a lot of work going on here, and we're not going to look at all of these, about 10 different groups from what we can tell here that they were making repairs. But in verse 8, the groups that stand out to me are the goldsmiths and the perfumers. I don't know exactly what their jobs entailed and exactly what they did. But just knowing that, based on what we know about those professions, do those sound like professional builders? Professional carpenters or mason or whatever you do to build a wall. Like, they don't sound like they really have been trained in those areas. But even though they had jobs to do, they had important stuff, and they probably weren't well suited to the work, they got involved in building the wall anyway. You know why? Because the wall needed rebuilt. Sometimes we say, I know this needs to be done, but that's not my area of strength. I'm not really good at that. That's just not my personality, or that's just not my gift. That's not my talent. I know this guy over here, he's much better at that. Or that lady, she is a rock star with that. I don't want to get in her way. Like, I'll stay in my lane. Well, sometimes there's so much work that needs to be done, we need to get outside of our comfort zones to do things that just need to be done. These goldsmiths, the perfumers, they got involved, and they were just willing to do the work. This involved everybody. It wasn't just one person with a certain task or a certain group of people who were working on this. Look at verse 11. This guy, the first person mentioned in verse 11, Malchijah, the son of Haram. That guy was mentioned in Ezra chapter 10. Now, I mentioned last week a little bit about the work of Ezra and what he did before Nehemiah came. But in Ezra 10, there's a list of people who were involved in some sinful activities. It was specifically people were married to people that they had no right to be married to. And if you remember what happened there, Ezra said, you got to separate. This is not godly. This is not what God wants. You need to put away these wives. And this guy was one of those. His name was recorded in Ezra 10. But even though he was guilty of this in the past, you see this guy is involved right now with getting this work done. Former sinners can even get involved in this work. We can't say, well, my past is too bad. Like, I can't do that. And people know it. Ezra wrote it down in a book. Like, everybody can read this. They know where I came from. It doesn't matter because there's work to do and they need to get involved. So he was able to do this work as well. Doesn't matter where you came from, you can be involved in the Lord's work too. There's a lot of times where you'll also see, and you probably saw this a couple times reading through, where it says that somebody repaired another section. Like, so the implication is they worked on their part, and then they jump in and they work on another part too. So it's not just the first section that they had. And by the way, sometimes in this chapter we see they worked on another section, but we don't even hear what the first section was that they worked on. So this is probably not even a complete list of everything that was going on. But just think about that mentality though. Another section. What does it take for someone to be willing to do another section? Well, if you think about this, isn't it really encouraging to think that someone, when they're done with their part of the wall, what they say is, this wall needs to be rebuilt. I did my part, but it's still not done over here. So I'm going to jump in and I'm going to help over here. A lot of times we might have this mentality of, if I do my part, if I do what I know I need to do, then I'm done. Then you do your part. You step up, dude. Like, come on. No, these people see the greater need, and they fulfill their task, their responsibility, and they're like, you know what? More work needs to be done. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to help out over here. And this part needs to be done, so I'm going to go and I'm going to work over here as well. You know, they pitch in, they keep going. There's a major difference in doing something because you have to do it and doing something because you want to do it. Imagine this. What if, and this works well if you think about like taking a kid to an amusement park. Like most kids love amusement parks, right? Like just in general. And so just imagine, what if the parents took the kids to this amusement park and said, all right, guys, we're going to stay until about 2 o'clock, and then we got to go. But then when you are there at the park, you're like eating lunch together, and then the parents say to the kids, oh, guys, I hate to tell you this, but we're going to have to spend another 3 hours here. It's like the kids are going to be like, oh, yes! Like, that's not a bad thing at all. I am excited about that. There are certain things, if I told my kids we were doing an extra 3 hours of, they would be very upset with me. But that's not one of them. Like, if it's something, McKenna's like, yes. If that's something that we are just in our mindset we want to do, things that we want to do, we're excited to do, we just want to do more of it. Some things we just kind of, we're gritting our teeth and holding our nose, and we're just trying to get through it as fast as we can, just because I don't want to do this, but I know I got to do it, and so I hate doing it, but I'm just going to do it. Now, there is something to be said about doing something even when we don't feel like doing it. So that is a thing. But when it comes to things of God, how do we feel about that? We talked about this a little bit in Bible class this morning, but what's our attitude? Like when we come to worship service, are we thinking, man, this guy just keeps talking and talking and talking, and just, can we get out of here? I'm hungry. Or is it like, man, this singing is just, can we speed up the songs? Can we sing songs that I know? Like, are there aspects of worship that we just like, oh, no, we'll just get through it? When it comes to like personal Bible reading, are you like, okay, I need to read my chapter today, and I really don't want to do it. I'll put it off until I'm falling asleep, but I'll do it. Okay, finally. Or prayer time, or even like serving others. Sometimes the attitude that we have to some of these things really reveal a lot about our heart, about how I really feel about serving God. And so all of these areas can be indicators of where we are in our relationship with God. Now, and I'll say this too, your feelings can change. Just because you don't feel just really excited to get into reading the Bible today, that doesn't mean, once you build a habit, you can start loving it, and it could be exciting to you. I've been there. I know what that's like, and so you can find excitement in that. You can learn to love things that you once did not love, and it's all a matter of mindset and attitude. I think we see this in the people who were willing to jump in. How fun is it to build walls? Some of you might like it. I don't know. I don't. But a lot of people probably they weren't really excited about this sort of work, but they were willing to do it because that's what needed to be done, and they were willing to help out others as well. Look at verse 12. Did you notice who was involved at the last part of verse 12? This guy's daughters. He and his daughters. Well, there's probably some other situations where some of the women were helping work as well. This group is specifically called out here. Even the women were not afraid of this work. You know, you see in here, we have all kinds of people from all different areas of life that probably were not used to this sort of work. They weren't used to doing this, but because the task was great, we needed everybody on board, probably got way outside their comfort zone in order to get things accomplished. And that's the kind of attitude I think we need to see in this and understand. All right, the rest of this chapter, verses 14 and 15, talk about the south gate. The rest of it is about the east gate. I am not going to read all of that. You should like get a Bible app or something that reads the names to you. Adam used that trick one time. Some of you remember. But it helps to go through this. But I just want to point out some things that we see in the rest of this. So like I said, verses 14 and 15 talk about what's happening on the south part of the wall. And then we see some stuff happening on the east side. Now you might notice in verse 17, the Levites are carrying out this task. And the next few verses talk about that. Verse 22, the priests, they're carrying out the work as well. But there's a guy in verse 20 that stands out to me, at least the way the New American Standard renders this. Verse 20, after him, Baruch, the son of Zabbai, zealously repaired another section. In anything that you do, there's going to be people who do those things with more energy, enthusiasm, just excitement. And you know who those people are, and you can see that. You think about even stuff like sports. You really see this with like younger kids. Like just imagine if you've ever seen like a little kid's basketball league or something, you know that there's some kids there who they're not nearly as talented as some of the other kids, but they have the energy. They have the excitement. And it's those kids who end up, they dive after the loose balls. They come up with them. And they make the most difference at the end of the game because they're just more excited, more enthusiastic. They're putting themselves into it, even more so than the people who are just better and talented. That's with every part of life, though. And that's with every work in the church as well. You think there are some people who do their work with excitement and zeal, and they're just really getting it. And some people that are just kind of, it's here, it's there. The thing that really stands out to me here is that Nehemiah saw fit to write down the word zealously next to this guy's name. And, this is inspired, so we take this, well, it must be true because he wrote it there. I don't think this guy was working extra hard just to get his name written in the book of Nehemiah. He probably didn't even know that was going to be a thing. But he was doing it because he cared and he wanted to get involved in this work. He did it because he was doing it for the Lord. And he was doing that zealously. What if there was a book written about the work of this church, like here at Lakeside? And someone is writing down, and they listed every single name of every single person. What kind of words would be next to your name? Have you ever thought about that? Like, would we see like they're zealously repairing the wall? They're zealously working, and they're doing this, or would it be something like, but they didn't put their hand to the work? That's kind of an intense thing to think about. Where am I in this whole scheme? If I was working on the wall, what kind of worker would I be? And we see that in the way that we handle things right now. Do you remember the Tekoites, the guys from verse 5, the guys who were working even without the support of the nobles? Well, look at verse 27. After them, the Tekoites repaired another section in front of the great projecting tower and as far as the wall of Ophel. So, again, these guys that we talked about before who did their work, without their leaders even ended up doing double duty, even though their leaders weren't involved. That's impressive, and that's really encouraging to me. One thing I'll mention as a side note here, just because I want to include this, because sometimes this throws people off. Look at verse 11. Look at the guy's name, Malchijah. Look in verse 14. We have a guy named Malchijah. And then look at verse 31. We have a guy, you know what his name is? Malchijah. Now, if you look at the verses there, it seems like those, they have different fathers. In verse 11, Malchijah the son of Haram. In verse 14, Malchijah the son of Rechab. This guy in verse 31 was one of the goldsmiths. So it's like, okay, well, which one is it? Was he the son of this guy, or was he the son of that guy, or was he a goldsmith? For whatever reason, sometimes when we read names in the Bible, we just completely lose our mind when it comes to the fact that there can be more than one person with a name in the Bible. Because if you think about this, think about these names. If I said some of these names, what comes to mind? If I said the name Danny, or if I said the name Stacy, or Macy, if I said the name McKenna, if I say the name Kathy, do you know what all of those names have in common? There's more than one person here in this group with those names. Isn't that interesting? And sometimes you have names that are very specific. I know 4 people with the name John Moore. Like, I know 4 different John Moores. Like, how crazy is that? How many Tiffany McKibbins do you guys know? Like, there's at least 2 of them, right? This is not like a weird thing. Sometimes we have people with the same names, but they're different people. That happened in the Bible times too. Everybody was naming their kids Malchijah. I don't know why, but they did. So don't like get worked up over that. I just wanted to mention that because that trips people up sometimes. A couple other phrases in here that I want us to remember. A lot of times it says that these people were doing the work in front of their house. Sometimes we think in order to do something great for God, I need to go somewhere and just like go into like a foreign country and do that. Sometimes the work is literally right in front of you, right in front of your house. And so these people were doing the work faithfully right where they are. You have work to do in front of you, right where you are, in your own house, in your own neighborhood, in your own job, in your school, wherever you are. You have work that you can do right there. And the other phrase that stands out to me is this person did the work and he did it next to him. How important do you think it is that this wall that they were building around Jerusalem actually met up? Like, what would it be like if this person built a section of the wall here, and then there was another section of the wall built like over here, and then like way over here, there was a section built there? That's not a wall. Those are like individual columns or what, I don't even know. You have to have those that like link up together. Everybody is doing their work next to someone else. We all do our work together, collectively as a whole. We are all working towards the same goal. And that's something that we need to think about as we are considering how we are using our work. It's a joint effort for sure. So we do what we can where we are, and we do what we can with others too, because we involve everyone else with the work. There's some things that I want you to remember from this chapter, from Nehemiah 3. First of all, God knows your name. You think of all these names that I don't know how to pronounce, and they're in here. They're recorded for a reason. And I think one of the reasons is to show us God knows who you are. That all of these people, the one that repaired zealously, the ones that didn't want to get involved in the work, but God knows your name. He knows you by name, every single person. John 10, verse 3 says that Jesus knows his sheep by name. I don't know anything about most of these people in this book. I have no idea. But God does. The same thing could be said for us. You know, it doesn't matter who else knows your name or anything along those lines. The fact that God knows your name. God has an individual relationship with every single person in this room. He knows each and every one of us. He knows your name. He knows my name. And he has a personal connection. Something else that's mentioned a lot in this chapter is the word work. Now, sometimes we shy away from the word work. To work sounds hard, because it is. But that's the word that is used here. They did the work of rebuilding the wall. Sometimes what God asks us to do is hard, is difficult, is challenging, and we have to apply ourselves to it. And we really have to obviously focus on God and his grace and his help to help us and equip us for the work, but we need to get involved. And like chapter 2, verse 18 said, we put our hands to the good work, that we actually get involved and do what needs to be done. That is something that we should all be involved in. They all got involved, even though, remember, they're not professional carpenters or masonry workers or whatever. They are perfumers and goldsmiths and whatever else. And they got involved in the work too. Nobody was too good for it. They did what they could. I want to think about connections to this passage in Ephesians 4. If you would turn there with me real quick. This is a really, you know this passage. It's not something that's anything groundbreaking, earth-shattering. But I do want to consider this in that light. Ephesians 4. Verse 11. And he gave some as apostles, some as prophets, some as evangelists, some as pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of service to the building up of the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith, and to the knowledge of the Son of God, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature which belongs to the fullness of Christ. As a result, we are no longer to be children, tossed here and there by waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by trickery of men, craftiness and deceitful scheming. But, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in all aspects into him, who is the head, even Christ, from whom the whole body, being fitted and held together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love. You see, in verse 11, you have people who, the apostles and prophets, their job was to reveal the message to everyone. We have evangelists who share the message. We have pastors and teachers who oversee and feed the flock of God, and that's their role, and that's what they do in the body. And they equip Christians to help build the body up. The reason I'm saying this and the reason I'm bringing this up is so we can see here, it's not that we just have a group of leaders who are doing the work of building up the body. If you notice, if you read this carefully, in verse 16 especially, you see the whole body being fitted, held together by what every joint supplies, the proper working of each individual part. What they're doing is they're helping equip everyone, every Christian, to do the work of building up the body. Every Christian needs to be a bodybuilder in the sense of the body of Christ. That we're all part of this work to encourage others and to build us up and to all of that. So the leaders will equip us to do the work of building up the body. So again, it's not just leaders give the body what they need and they build the body up. It's every member who's part of this. And that goes into this point. We need to be more about seeking to serve rather than to be served. Now remember, that statement was made about Jesus, right? That Jesus himself, he came to this earth not to be served, but in order to serve. That he had something that he wanted to encourage people to do and help out with. And if we lose sight of that, I think we can get in trouble. Because sometimes the way that we approach things is, man, that group there, that church, it's just, I'm not getting fed. I'm not getting spiritually fed. Or the people there, they're not encouraging to me. And I come here and I'm just not getting anything out of it. What's the problem with all of those statements? We're focused on what we are receiving. Am I getting fed? Am I getting treated right? Am I getting the respect that I deserve? Really, what it comes down to is, am I putting myself into the role of a servant in order to help others? Am I looking for ways that I can serve and be involved in those areas instead of just seeing, how well I could be treated? We need to think about where can I work on this wall? What job can I do? Can I do another section? Can I get involved in that? That's the sort of attitude that we're looking for, that Nehemiah 3 was teaching us, and I think the Lord teaches us as well. It's not about the honor that I can get. It's not about what I'm getting out of others, but it's the service that we're able to provide others and to build them up. And so right now, what are some things that we can do as individuals? How do we get involved in this work? We're not building a literal wall. If you want to, we can. But we're not building a literal wall. What are we doing? We have work that we can all get involved in and do various different things. It's not all about, well, if I want to help out my local church, you know what I can do? I could do some Bible reading, or I could lead singing, or I could pass out the Lord's Supper trays, or I can offer up public prayers. Those are things that need to be done. That's true. But what do all of those have in common? They're like the upfront roles. That's the important stuff. Is that the most important stuff? If that's the case, then there's a lot of people who aren't involved in any of that work at all. There's a lot of other things that need to be done and that we need to pay attention to that would help the body grow. What about things like visiting older members? People who are maybe lonely, who aren't able to get out a lot. They just need someone to talk to, someone to encourage them. And it's not that we go in with this mindset of, I'm going to visit this person and I have the perfect things to say that are just going to make them feel so good. That's not realistic. It's more of, I want to show that I care. I want to go and talk to them and just be an encouragement by just being there. There's a lot of people who need that, and we need to be involved in that work. What about those who are sick? Maybe there's people all the time having surgeries or going through various things, taking care of their needs and checking in on them and seeing what we can do to help provide for them and showing that we care and all of those sorts of things. Paying attention to the young people. And I know that a lot of people are pretty good at that because young people, they're pretty noticeable. A lot of times they're loud, but they're noticeable. We need to pay attention to those people. Know their names. See if we can interact with each other and just build our body up just by being able to interact, knowing names, show mutual interest, that sort of thing. This kind of goes into something else I want to consider. Greeting visitors. Have you ever visited like a congregation or you went somewhere and you don't know like a single person and you just go there and you sit and it feels just kind of awkward and you're like, man, I'd like to talk to somebody, but or maybe you're thinking, I hope nobody talks to me. Either way, it's an awkward situation. If you were visiting somewhere, think about this. When we have visitors, what is our responsibility as members to the visitors? A lot of times what happens is we have some people that are going to go and they're going to talk to them. But what happens, imagine this, what if you are a young person and you come into a congregation and the only people that come to speak to you are older? Well, I'm glad that the older people did talk to me, but why did those young people not talk to me? Like, is there something wrong with me? Am I not able to interact? It is helpful when you have people in your own age group, demographic, who are willing to reach out because that can make you feel a little bit more. And that works the other way around too. If someone who's older comes in and only young people are talking to them, it's like, do the older people not like me? Like, what's going on here? And I got to tell you, this is awkward. No matter how you slice it, it's awkward. I feel so awkward when I'm trying to talk to someone new. Like, I really do. But it's one of those things, I think almost everybody feels that in some way. But it's a job that needs to be done. And we need to be willing to step out of our comfort zones, to get involved, greeting people, just saying hi, just get to know them, make them feel a little bit more at ease. Because it's better to do it and to feel awkward than to not get it done at all. And we need to realize that we are all part of this work. And so that's involved. And sometimes we think about, I'm really good at talking to the same people I always talk to because that's comfortable. And I know I get into that habit a lot. I just talk just same people, and I don't even notice what other people are doing because I don't even put myself out there. Sometimes I think we get too comfortable with that. We get too comfortable talking to the same people, and we don't see what other people need. And we don't have those relationships with other people. I think we need to be aware of the needs of everyone in the congregation. And the last thing I want to mention is using our talents. We all have different talents. Maybe your talent is writing cards. You're really good at writing cards. So you know what you should do? Write cards. People need cards. People need encouragement. And that's a good way to help. If you're good at fixing cars, help people when they need it. And a lot of people, if you're good at fixing cars, people know that and they will ask you, because that happens a lot. Or whatever it is, making meals, preparing meals. If you're good at babysitting and you know that you have like this young couple who are just really struggling with their time, and you're like, hey, I'll watch the kids for a little bit, let you have some time, that sort of thing. Just whatever our talents, our abilities are, we can use those to help other people. And all of these things are focused on what others need. It's not about me. It's about how can I serve in the body? How can I help to build this wall? How can I be involved in the work of the church to help us all grow together in unity, in love, and to be able to build each other up? That's what Nehemiah 3 was about. And that's hopefully the message that we got from this. That there is a way to rebuild from the rubble, that we can help each other in the work that needs to be done, that we can be servants of others, and that we could encourage people that way. Now, I do want to just take a second just to say that usually at the end of these lessons, what we do is we talk about what our spiritual lives look like. What is my life like? Is your life in total rubble? Is it like, man, I'm just struggling to get by? Physically, spiritually, whatever. Am I in a place where God wants me? I think no matter where we are, there's work that needs to be done, and there's ways that we can step up. And again, we might not know the whole process of everything I need to do. What's my path going forward? What do I need to do? Well, what we do know is that God tells us, come to me. That's what we need to know, that we need to turn our lives over to the Lord. And so no matter where you are with that, if you are not a Christian and you need to become one to give your life to God initially, or if you have been a Christian but you've walked away and you haven't been putting in the work on building that wall, and you've just let things slip and you haven't had that relationship with God that you need, then we need to make that right. And we're ready to help you with that right now. So if you need to make anything right in your life with the Lord, please come as we stand and sing.